All right, everybody. I want to welcome everyone back just for another one of our weekly or progressive chats. So one of the things I want to kind of talk about a little bit is a little bit of wondering why we carry what we carry, right? I mean, for the most part, people might want to carry something that is going to give them what do people call stopping power, right? Stopping power, which is, according to a lot of people, kind of a useless term. That being said, it is also a term that does mean something to a few people, but I want to say reliability, accessibility, and coolness. One of the things that I think is really interesting whenever we look at guns is I think that coolness is one of the things that you have to look at. So for me, when I think of stopping power, we need to think about cartridges that we know for a fact are going to give good stopping power. That's 9 Luger. We could say 380 ACP. We could say 45 ACP. We could say 10 mil. We can say 40. We can absolutely say 5.7. We can say 45 long Colt. You can see 44 mag. Obviously, we can go with 410, 12 gauge. We can go with 38 or 357. Hopefully, you're kind of seeing that there's, some very standard rounds here. I'll put 357 SIG just for fun. 45 gap because they are well known. You can also go 9x18 Mac and a couple other, those military style rounds. So remember, all of these are going to have stopping power that is going to be more than adequate for any type of situation that you might be looking at a life and death type of thing. So when you're looking at a handgun, any of these are really going to be fine. I think if I hate people that get into the caliber wars and they start to demand, reasons why somebody would use this or wouldn't use this. Why would you possibly need this if you have? Really, it's just one of those things where, you just trust, what you have and trust what you're, use what you are good at and use what you have available to you, right? So I think, as far as I know, anything in this is going to be good. Reliability, you have semi-auto. You have Revolver, right? You're also going to have something like rifle/pistol, those PDWs, which I'm not a fan of. They are loud. Shotgun in any size, right? So any of these are going to be sufficient. You don't have to have anything that's, outside of that. Accessibility. Can you buy stuff? Well, where are you going to get this gun? Are you going to have to go out and look for parts? Are you going to be able to have to go look for ammunition? Do you have to have a gunsmith repair a piece of it that if something is not working exactly right? Are you able to get a holster for it? Are you able to maybe upgrade, change the grips or something? Ammo is the biggest one for me. So you're not going to want to use several of these that are going to have really, really expensive and hard to find ammo. 5x7x28, not so good. 45 long Colt, 45 gap. I don't like being able to have to look at that. 9x18 Makarov, that'll come off that list. 380, 45, 10, 9, 40, 357 SIG. Let's even knock that off. Those are kind of hard to find, but you will. 38, 357, 44 mag, they're okay. They're not impossible to get, but they're probably less difficult to get than 5.7x28. So let's just hone some of this down. Can you buy stuff, ammo, right? That's kind of what I was looking at there. Coolness, something that matches your personality. That's a big thing for me. So my personality is I like vintage. I like heavy. Give me some steel guns. Right. So, when I think about a lot of this stuff, I really do really like to consider a great big spread of different kinds of guns. And so, as you've already seen from one of my other videos, I do have a car MK9, which is a micro carry 9mm, but it is in stainless steel, and it is really just what I think is a beautiful gun and a beautifully made gun. I'm in a position in my life where I don't like owning a whole lot of guns that I don't plan on keeping for potentially the rest of my life. I've had a lot of toys, and I do have a lot of toys, but I don't like buying new guns that are going to be just something to sit in a safe. I want to have, what is the last 22 I will ever buy? What is the last hunting rifle? That kind of thing. And that's not with intention that I never buy more guns, but I only want to buy things that I consider to be valuable. And so, when I look at personal defense handguns, there's not a lot of stuff out there today that I consider to be valuable, except things like that, maybe that car or something. So I started kind of digging back, looking through historical guns. What were things that were popular, and maybe the times before I was born, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that kind of thing, before we had these basically, plastic guns that were so easily accessible and disposable. Guns that had to be kind of gunsmith and made to look, they had to look good and they had to feel good, and they kind of had to work a certain way, and they didn't have to be good for all ammo. They were a little bit pickier, and that's how guns used to be made. You can't have the beauty of a Glock in today's today's Glock, and you can't have that reliability and functionality of something in the 1950s and 60s. That you needed something that was a little bit better, because ammo manufacturers might be using very different things. Glock can eat any ammo versus, you had a really nice high-end Colt pistol versus a Smith & Wesson or a Ruger that may, have different preferences of ammunition or certain things like that, especially in those old days when people were mixing ammunition, in new guns and old guns as well. And so today we don't really use a lot of those vintage guns, and any gun you buy on today's market is probably going to be useful for or able to be used with a variety of ammunition, including modern high-power ammunition. Anyways, I said all of that to say, one of my favorite carry pieces that I have is based on a lot of this. Stopping power. Okay, well, what do you need to use? Reliability. Why does this gun fit that? Accessibility. Can you buy stuff in ammo? And cool factor. So here it is. This is my obviously one of my backup favorite handguns I've ever purchased. This is 1982, I believe, Ruger Speed 6 357 Magnum. Now, a lot of people might compare, different Smith & Wesson models. I think 65. I don't remember a lot of the model numbers, but there were 357 Magnums that were in this kind of medium-sized frame. They were more popular at one point, but Ruger got into a lot of military, police and contracts for defense or law enforcement, that kind of thing. And so the Ruger 6-shooter was a very popular platform, and depending on the size of the barrel and the size of the hand grip here was how they would name the gun. This is one of the more sort of rare models, but it is both a mixture of a sort of medium frame and a sort of small frame Ruger. It wouldn't be comparable to today's GP100 because it's smaller, but it wouldn't be also comparable to today's SP101 because it is larger. The SP101 from today uses a 5-shot cylinder instead of a 6. This uses a 2.75-inch barrel versus I think the SP101 might use something a little shorter or a little longer depending on the different styles. The SP101 grip is much smaller as well. It wouldn't dip this much lower, and I believe that the trigger guard does go a little bit higher under here. So that's part of the difference there. Obviously, we're going to safety check it before we fool around and do any kind of stuff like that here. But this is just what I consider to be a darn good pistol. And so let's go stopping power. This is a 357 Magnum. One of the things that I'm going to consider in just having stopping power in general, 357 Magnum can do it. Out of a 3-inch barrel, one of the issues that you come up with 357 Magnum is that you're not getting all of the required velocity that you need to get. So in a 357 Magnum, the perfect velocity is 125 grain hollow point at 1350 feet per second. If you can go up to 1450, those are considered even better. I'm dropping pins and things here. So you're not going to get that out of a 3-inch. You're probably going to get this out of a 4 to a 6-inch, which is something that, it's how a Magnum pistol is supposed to work. They are supposed to have a 6, maybe 5, 6, 7-inch barrel, and that you use a nice slow powder to burn and let that bullet collect a lot of velocity on its way out. You don't have that much here. So that's one of the things that we have to consider with this lovely pistol is that, okay, with 3-inch barrel, we're not going to get as much. And that's kind of one of the plights of the snub nose revolver for self-defense. Are you really going to get everything that the 357 has to give you? No, you're also going to have a lot of powder that's burning on its way out, and you're going to have a fireball that's gigantic and a lot of kick. What a lot of people do, understandably, is they'll use a 38 special. So, much like you see in 9mm, that a lot of people, when they use a small or a micro-sized gun, they don't shoot the 115 grain. They'd rather shoot 124 or 147 grain. So in this, a lot of people, when they shoot a 357 Magnum out of a snub nose, will move up to 158 grain. So they use a 158 grain bullet, and if you are a hand loader or not, you can kind of work on where I'm going next here. But a lot of people use the 38 special case, or they will load a round to 38 special plus P velocities. So if you can get a 158 grain bullet leaving this barrel. Now, usually you use what is called a lead semi-wad cutter hollow point gas checked. So you see all of this bullet. What that is that is a bullet that is not jacketed. It is soft lead. It is hollow point. It's flat nose. And then it has a little piece of copper on the bottom, a very small one, a 35 caliber piece of copper to keep the lead from melting as it's getting pushed out. That is what a lot of people call the FBI load. And this is going to come back to where we have stopping power. The FBI load is 158 grain lead semi-wad cutter hollow point. It doesn't necessarily need to be gas checked, but I would say that you should get a gas check bullet going about 1,000 feet per second. About, and that's variable. I would say anywhere between 800 feet per second and 1,100 feet per second, depending on the pistol you have. That round is the famed 38 plus P special round that has basically put down 1 million perps. The FBI, police forces all around the country use that for decades and decades and decades, and it worked great. If anything, you could probably say that maybe other than 9mm in the last 25 years, more people have been put down, so to speak, by that than anything. So my carry ammo for this 357 Magnum is 38 special plus P lead semi-wad cutter hollow point gas checked, and these are powder coated or coated just so that they have a little bit easier time in different barrels, and it kind of just works out a little bit better. This is by Underwood Ammo. In a 4-inch pistol, this will probably get up to the 1,200 feet per second mark. In a 3-inch, I'm guessing it'll be somewhere a little over 1,000. I haven't tested these with my chronograph yet. They're rather expensive, but for this gun, I carry these. And you might ask, well, why in the heck don't you just carry a big, nasty 357 Magnum? And the answer is, I could. But if you've ever shot a 357 Magnum with a, I guess you could say, with a snub nose type of firearm, it's not pleasant. It's not fun, and there's not a lot of enjoyment in that process. So again, It's one of those things where it's just something to consider. I would rather have more control over a firearm and know that it still has adequate stopping power. Here's another thing that I wanted to talk about: reliability. The fun of reliability is that I can leave this gun with 6 rounds in the chamber indefinitely. There's nothing right now in this firearm, it's unloaded as you can see, that would stop me from grabbing this gun, pulling the trigger, and it going bang. It can sit in a holster, it can sit in a car console, it can sit in the bag. There's nothing about this that needs to be touched. Supposing that the gun doesn't, go in it's not dropped in the dirt or something like that and something gets in the muzzle. There's no springs being, pulled at any given time. It's just in resting state. Just a big ball of potential energy. Versus something that has a magazine that you might want to consider every 6 or 7 months, unloading those magazines, reloading them, maybe cleaning the magazines out, putting a little bit of lube on the spring, just to make sure that those magazines will feed reliably, right? Just because you have stuff under spring tension. And there are rumors about whether or not that's effective, and we've been using magazine-fed guns for over 120 years at this point. That being said, that's something that most people that carry magazine-fed pistols will do. A revolver will not have to worry about that. Wet, dry, snow, hot, cold, whatever. It's just that bullet is sitting there in that chamber, just waiting for the hammer to hit it. So there's nothing that really needs to be done. And so the reason that I like this as a backup gun, or a perfect nightstand gun, or a car console gun, or something to put in a case or a bag, is that all I have to do is just take this little DeSantis pocket holster, and it sits like that indefinitely. Absolutely indefinitely until it's needed. And hey, thankfully, I never needed it, thank the Lord. Would knock on wood on that. But it's just one of those things where, in case it's ever there, I couldn't think of a more reliable and functional handgun and just kind of weapon system. Accessibility, can you buy stuff? 38 Special and 357 Magnum are not the easiest thing to find, but they have not stopped making this particular round since they were filling it with black powder. And it's one of the most popular handgun cartridges and even small rifle cartridges out there. So yes, you can easily find it, relatively speaking. Is it going to be as cheap as 9mm? No, absolutely not. But if you're a hand loader, it's quite easy to hand load these. It's not hard to find bullets. It's not hard to find a lot of used cases. It uses a small pistol Magnum primer and everything. I like to use that when I hand load these. I like to hand load plinking loads down to the 750 feet per second, 158 grain, to shoot at targets. And then I use maybe 4.5 or 5 grains of maybe Win 231, and it basically operates kind of like a slow 9mm, which is more than enough to get out there and go shoot cans or go shoot rocks or something like that. So this is a great gun that you can take out and shoot on the cheap. You can reload for the cost of a primer and a bullet, and the powder is virtually free. Maybe 1 cent or 2 cents per round. So supposing you can go out and shoot for 10-15 cents a round, even though primers are on the more expensive side right now, but compared to 50 or 60 cents a round if you were to try to find even the cheapest loaded 38 Special. So it's one of those things where it's great to do that. And the nice thing is if you hand load this, the benefits of this are I can load 38 Special loads in a 357 Magnum case. Is it the perfect system? No, it's not. But what it does do is it allows me to use a case that stretches the entire length of the chamber, and I can run reduced velocity 357 Magnum loads indefinitely. It's just kind of, well known that they will be on the slow side, but they're great for plinking. So you don't even have to buy 38 Special brass. You could just buy 357 brass and just buy Magnum primers and go out and work a hand load up that's safe in your gun and that's remotely accurate, and make a gazillion of them and just shoot all day and night. I personally don't like carrying hand-loaded personal self-defense rounds. It's not that I don't trust myself. I've only ever had 1 round in the history of all my reloading, however many I've reloaded, that wouldn't go off. That being said, my job gives me a lot of insight into how a lot of this stuff works, and from the legal side and just kind of understanding how people and prosecutors and the state thinks. And it's just a good idea to find a factory load that works. And so I'm going to encourage everyone to do the same thing as carry some factory ammo. It doesn't look great on you if you use hand-loaded ammo in a self-defense situation. It's something you can do for hunting, obviously much more easily, but again, if you need performance, there are companies that do high performance hand loads for things like this. Underwood, Buffalo Bore, some Barnes, Double Tap. Those are a few names that I think of. HSM does some great wheel gun type of loads for pistols like this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this particular gun. This is like I said, the Ruger Speed 6. This is a shortened version of a 3-gun line that they had. They had the Ruger Speed 6, which was a small one with that having this smaller handle, this 2 3/4 inch barrel, and the fixed rear sight. Next, you had a 4-inch and a 6-inch version called the Security 6 or the Service 6. Those might have the adjustable rear sights here, and they might have a much wider handle here. I actually don't have the chart in front of me of the exact differences, but I do know that there are 3 different ones, and so eventually what I'd like to do is get a set of all 3. I think it would be very cool to have a set of all 3. But even though this gun is older than me, it is somewhere around 40 some odd years old, I think. It is still a great gun. It still shoots great. If you want to look at the bluing on it, it's just in good condition. And the nice thing is you could probably find something like this in your local areas for not a lot of money. This is pre collectibility era. I think that in the next 10 or 15 years these will be much more collectible, but right now they are still in their point at which they are very old, and people are just looking at them like old guns and not as a collectible or vintage or antique firearm. So it's just something that I think that if you have the ability to grab one of these, under 500, maybe 600, it was a gun that will absolutely hold up. And I think that everyone ought to consider it, especially for the reasons I've talked about. The reason that I got it. The last thing, like I said, is coolness. My personality, I just like having fun and interesting things. And if I were to pull out a regular old Smith & Wesson 686, it would seem like, oh, well, that was a good choice, but, very creative, right? Well, this, Ruger Speed 6 is kind of a more interesting, gun anyways. It might be something that no one else has seen or hasn't seen in many years, and so I kind of like that. I really do. And that's the same thing with the MK9 that I have. My ultimate pistol is that I do have is my SIG P226 Legion, and so that's kind of more of a basic gun as far as being just on the lists of all the things that people ought to consider. But I love this sucker, and this thing remains in a very special place, just for last ditch effort, need of a very reliable, ready to go gun at any point. So I hope you enjoyed this. I just like talking about guns. I'm not trying to do anything with this channel other than just talk about guns and enjoy myself and connect with other people. I encourage you to check out my cousin Isaac's channel, which I'll leave a link for down below. And I think that it would be kind of fun to just show some support for him. He and I love just talking guns and kind of sharing, swapping stories, and we have the same kind of ideas. He got me into Grendel, and hopefully I think that we've got a bunch of men in our family that are really into the Grendel, so it's kind of a family thing now that we all kind of enjoy together. But yeah, this is a very sweet little gun, and I hope that if you have the opportunity to find one, you may give it serious consideration. Okay, so if you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Just ask everybody to be civil, please, and that's all I care about. So have a good one. God bless. All right.